We love Daemons here at Tabletop Tactics, and given they've had a bit of a rough time of it during 10th edition, we wonder if that means something far more exciting is coming for them over on the horizon. Could they be looking at a whole range refresh? And if so, how should Daemons look in 40k? I am James Jordan, aka The Bard, and today I am joined by Lawrence Baker.
Hello.
A demonic spider.
Oh.
And Lord of the Demon Forge, Kettlebeard.
Oh, I like that title. That's good.
You can take it.
Thank you.
Straight off the dome.
Lovely.
Just for you.
Wonderful.
Now, if you haven't guessed by the title and these terrible puns, we're talking about demons today. Because unfortunately, it does kind of look like at the moment there's no demon releases because they've all got their little free Grotma style detachments.
Yeah.
They've had a lot, which is an uppity, a good thing.
Yeah.
But on the downside, it does very much feel like they've just been folded into the Chaos books.
Yep.
Now.
Kind of.
With
one detachment, but you can't even...
Like a little amuse-bouche.
I don't want to talk about it, actually.
It's very saddening, actually. But all is not lost. Because if you remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about what does every faction need, you had a very good idea, which you do occasionally have. You suggested that actually with like VAAASHTORRR and stuff, do demons just need a whole new direction? Do they actually need to be more mechanical and more actually have a unique aesthetic in 40k rather than being part of the homogenous sort of form that they are currently?
Fantasy demons in the sci-fi setting.
Exactly, which there's practical reasons for that we'll get onto in a moment. But then you found a skull.
Yeah.
You found a skull, didn't you, Beard?
Well, ever since you talked about this sci-fi demon
You've been ticking,
thing,
you two like jumped on it straight away.
it's a really...
I was like, they should do this. And then you two were like...
It's fascinated me because I've been thinking about demons for ages. I've always quite enjoyed demons.
Yeah.
But
they're partial.
Yeah, they've always stood out a bit and felt like they don't really fit in the setting. Because like you just said, like they are fantasy demons in 40k. Like in the artwork, it kind of makes sense because they're sort of like coming out of real space and it's chaos.
Yeah.
But they don't look quite right. And the way that you were describing like more sci-fi demons, I'm thinking like bloodletters with a bionic eye, and you've got plague bearers with mechanical legs. Yeah. I then thought about the Soul Grinder, which is already a model, which
they've already done it.
Yeah, fits in that idea perfectly. And the other day we were thinking about demons, and on the Games Workshop website recently, if you go to the 40k section and go to Chaos Demons, pretty much everything's gone. So there's no infantry anymore. Okay. So I am Johnny Johnny Games Buyer, model enthusiast, and I'm like, the demons look cool. You go to Games Workshop, Warhammer.com, you go to the shop, and if you go to demons, the only thing you can buy now in that section are characters. And a couple of slightly bigger models.
I think you could search, if you did a random website search, you could find the troops.
But you can, but they're in Death Guard, Emperor's Children, Thousand Suns, Wild Eaters.
Rather than their own faction.
That's where they're categorised.
So since Bellacor's in Sigmar, isn't he? So he's not like on...
Bellacore is in the 40k bit as well.
So he's just,
because the characters are there, but all of the infantry and their associated characters are not listed as part of demons anymore.
Right.
So I'm thinking, well, what's going on there? And then the other day, 2 days ago, me was at my desk doing hobby stuff.
Johnny Games Buyer himself.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I went to go and grab one of my favourite boxes of miniatures, which is the new Skulls box, which if you haven't got it, it's brilliant. Any hobbyist that likes doing stuff on their bases, 7 heads, knackered helmets, blah, 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 blah. I saw, and it's on the cover of the box, there is a demon skull with a bionic eye. In that box. So that got my brain box worrying as well, because that doesn't represent anything in the current range, because all of the severed heads and helmets represent something that's in the range currently. You've got Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, all 4 of the gods, Eldar, you've got several flavors of guards, you've got Krieg, Orc skulls, everything represents a model which is dead. That skull doesn't represent anything. Nothing. There's Tyranids, there's Tau. Everything has a dead something. But that head...
But why does one have a cyber eye?
Why does one have a cyber eye?
Are you perchance suggesting that I need to put a certain hat on today?
Maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is a little from the miniatures designers saying, oh, maybe this is something that's coming later.
Well, I think there's definitely been people that have. I've seen people in comments before and spoken to people which I think feel like the demon range is perhaps a little bit tired. You know, like you take things like the blood letters, they're all the original plasticized, is that a word? Troops for the demon range. And preceding that you had metal, well the old blood letters were like this. But the Juan Diaz demonettes were really popular and they did really well. And then obviously they've been replaced by, the whole range is now plastic basically, for the most part anyway. But those old blood letters, that whole aesthetics carried across to the Blood Crushers where they're riding those juggernauts. And in the Chariot-esque skull cannon, which is, you know, works for fantasy for sure, is maybe slightly odd in a sci-fi setting. But they are old now. I mean, these are like early 2000s, early 2000s they came out. So all of a sudden we're in 2025. I mean, it's a long time ago when you think about it.
And the only new Chaos models which have come into 40k were Sigmar models.
Right.
The new Nurgle stuff was all for Sigmar.
Yes.
Slaanesh.
And it's much better than the 40k stuff.
Yeah, big time.
Like look at the Blight Kings.
Oh yes, all the mortal stuff.
That is really awesome. You know.
Well, this has got my little pickle thinking because all the mortal stuff is very clever because it's sort of leaning into you have. With the inception of demons in Warhammer, they did a very clever thing to start with, which was making demons work for all the systems. Which is intrinsically a clever idea because the demons go through time and space. It's quite a clever conceit, right?
And the old world or Sigmar is supposed to be in the in the Eye of Terror, isn't it? It's supposed to be.
Yes, right. As the theory goes. Sort of myth, the old what is it? When they found the relic bolter in like Albion or something.
And the Power Fist.
The Power Fist. But like, I love that idea. But then you
Sigmar
do
was
think.
a Space Marine. Did you know that? Or some people think he was the Lost Primarch. He's one of the Lost Primarchs.
I'm suddenly back in.
Oh,
hello.
There's a lot of mythology there.
That's cool.
I like this.
He's the Lost Primarch.
That's cool.
That's why, of course, he's a god.
We'll come back to that in a later episode.
Full of info.
Always good ideas. But yeah, right. You have this multifaceted thing that goes through time and space. You have all these different demons, but then they lent into having the mortal elements of the Sigmar armies be like extra demonic and really leaning into an aesthetic. And then I feel like they started doing that at 40k with VAAASHTORRR. But then he just sort of is just VAAASHTORRR. And like you were saying, with the Forge Fiends and stuff, like there is something there that kind of, do they need to lean into a purely sci-fi aesthetic?
VAAASHTORRR should be in the new Chaos Demons book. Along with Mauler Fiends, Forge Fiends, all of the Demon Engine stuff, you know, your Soul Forged stuff. And then I mean, look, I'm not breaking the mold here and starting anew because like Doom Dark Ages come out recently, but Doom's been doing cyber demons for a long time. It works really well. And it would make sense that these things of the warp would absolutely use, you know, they would mold their flesh with the technology. They would grow into it, you know. I mean, effectively, that's what the mutalators and the obliterators are,
flesh metal
pretty much.
Stuff.
You know, like that's what Chaos would do. You know, it would be a melding of matter and technology. To create something truly hideous.
Well, I suppose the other way you could do it, if you've got our mate VAAASHTORRR, you could also sort of go down the route of he's been like rounding up and trapping demons. And sort of seeing their flaws, a bit like a dark
Ash Ketchum.
Yeah, or like a hideous Belisarius Call. He's sort of seen the flaws in the demons, and he's like putting new legs on them and giving them guns and stuff.
A demonic version of Fabius Bile.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Today's video is brought to you thanks to the support from our on-demand members. It's due to their amazing support that we're able to produce shows just like this one. As well as supporting the channel, our members get access to at least 2 additional battle reports every week, as well as full codex reviews, painting tutorials, our weekly on-demand exclusive talk show, all of our competitive 40k league games, and so much more. And we add to our library of content every single week. You can join our on-demand community today by downloading our app or heading to the website. And right now we have an introductory offer for new customers, so there's never been a better time to join on demand. Thanks for watching. Let's get back to the show. And I think that is an inherent problem with the demons, because they are basically fantasy demons. There's very little to help them in the 40k game.
Yes.
They've got no shooting, really. So you could add in loads of tech elements to make them a bit more of a 40k army.
Yes.
In terms of the gameplay and the game style.
Well, this is what I was going to, like, whilst a clever practical conceit of being like, we'll do it for both systems, it has sort of trapped them. They now can't go either way, whereas the success of the mortal elements to the demons in Sigmar to make them more efficient in that game system have been wildly successful for those factions. So then they must now be thinking, we should just do that. I mean, there's an argument to say Death Guard are the mortal equivalent for Nurgle, right?
Yeah.
But, like you say, actually helping demons out in 40k to make an actual 40k demons army. It doesn't need to do double duty. Because you could do so much with it.
You really could,
The Doom thing is very valid, because the designers at Games Workshop must get inspiration from different sources. They must. I mean, obviously there's a lot to go by in the 40k, well, just the general Warhammer sphere. There's one of the best IPs ever. So there's so much artwork to go by, but they must get outside inspiration. So something like Doom, which has been around for such a long time, and then reimagined in the last decade, there's a very obvious link that you could do there between Doom and Demons. I don't want to say it would be easy to do, because it's basically redoing the entire range. But your point about the Forge Fiends and all the demon engines, they already have that kind of look. They've sort of got fleshy parts around all of their bionics.
Well, they are. I think the fluff is they are demonic entities which have been, reforged.
Turboed up,
So could they then, in terms of like a resource, because like we always say all the time, they should just redo everything all the time, but there's a really limited amount of resource they have at Games Workshop. They can only make so many models. So could they just focus on the infantry and bring in everything else to flesh out the army?
I think so, because also things like you don't need to necessarily make everything cyber. Having something which is like really ancient and old and archaic occasionally gives it more weight, i.e. Be'lakor. Be'lakor turns up with this flaming sword, and he doesn't have all of the technology because he's from the time before man crawled out of the sea. And that becomes the same with the greater demons. Exactly, that gives them weirdly more weight, and then mixing it in with all of this cyber stuff, I think becomes really creepy and awesome. And I'm all about creepy and awesome.
Speaking of Doom in the Dark Ages, you're right with that thing of having the ancient stuff just be ancient. Weirdly comes across as more terrifying, because you've ripped guns off demons' arms all game. You're having a lovely time smashing things into smithereens. And then when something that's just made of flesh and got 2 fists is like, I'll have a go, you're like, he might be quite hard, that guy. Like, imagine if you had a Nurgle demon army with cannons and guns and all the rest of it, then out of the warp, a big, giant mound of flesh that's only weapon is a bell came out. Now that makes that thing way scarier, doesn't it? Bong! Like,
but what's also quite interesting is that there are, in the artwork for Chaos Demons, because I agree, some things should be just pure chaos. So they don't need the bionic stuff. The artwork for the Great Unclean one in the Chaos Codex that came before, he's got like pipes and exhaust vents and things like that, and he looks really scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like spewing out stuff
Yes.
and like plumes of smoke coming out of his head. Yeah. There are some things where you could add things in and it would also look amazing.
Yes, it would, yeah.
It's kind of a win-win really, because they've already got an interesting model range, but if it was predominantly sort of a bit more tech focused, I think that would really transform the faction.
There's something interesting about how Heresy has done it. There are a few, generally speaking, the demon range in Heresy has not been as well sculpted as the 40k stuff. But occasionally they have some, like what I consider really good hits. So there's Corax Utterblight, which is basically like a Great Unclean one. But there's something about him which looks more warp, I guess more like a creature from the warp than, say, your new sculpt Great Unclean one, which is perhaps a little bit more, well, that whole the whole demon range they made a little bit more comical, didn't they? There was a little bit of humour in there, which a lot of people love, and that's great if that's your vibe. But for me, actually, things like the Gal Vorbak from the Word Bearers, Corax Utterblight, they captured the horror of the warp, you know, taken in flesh form. Actually, in a little bit more of a dark, menacing way than I feel like a lot of the 40k range does at the moment, and that works in the setting of technology. You know, in terms of the context of 30k. So you know, it can be done having these just these ancient things appear or warp the flesh of like Marines and so forth. But yeah, I think with 40k, cyber demoning them would be really good.
Well, we were talking about this morning. If you think of 30k, some of the descriptions they have for the demons, these are things that ultimately terrify the Primarchs.
Yes.
Like it puts the Primarchs on edge when they meet demons for the first time. And then we go to like the Siege of Terror, and your friend, the wall-mounted bum Sphincter demon.
Yeah.
It's like there's weird stuff coming out of the warp that I like the idea they spread out like an infection into the future of the Dark Millennium, and then like you say, like that technology is pretty handy. Like sort of absorb it into themselves. I think that marrying of the two, it's just I feel like it's, when you say easy, I do know what you mean. It feels like an easy thing to do, but the difficulty is then, do you upset everyone if you redo a range, right? And demons are across multiple systems. So therefore, with them sort of being pushed out of 40k, is the hard work already done? Is that hardest bit about any new range, when there's ultimately like a redoing, have they already kind of done that on the sly? And does that mean actually they have maybe been working on something?
Maybe. They like I said earlier on, they just don't really fit the vibe and the setting at the moment. And your point about the whole comical bit is super valid, because I really like Nurgle demons, but every time I use Horticulus Slimux and two beasts of Nurgle, there is a more comedic element to it,
There is.
which doesn't fit in 40k.
No.
Have they ever mentioned Floppy Piper in any of the novels? I don't think so. You've got all of these, like, and it's getting more gritty as we go. Like we've seen with the Secret Level and Space Marine 2, it is becoming more gritty.
Yeah, well, they never make it comical in the video games.
Imagine if you were playing Space Marine 2 and you just wiped out a bunch of Tzeentch stuff, then all of a sudden Nurgle comes. And yeah, the Herald of Nurgle is it's like it just doesn't work. So I wonder if they do need to have a real like U-turn on the direction of demons, and this is where
I mean, it's a tough one though, isn't it? Because like, you know, I got eviscerated, which I knew I would, and justifiably so, by Necron fans when I said, well, you know, I'm not really massively into Necrons. I could be, it's just I didn't quite like the narrative direction they took. And, you know, same reason, like, you know, I wouldn't have had Space Orcs, you know, it would have been a different alien race. But I love playing Orcs. You know, I really enjoy playing them. A lot of people might not know that I actually painted the original core of the Necron army, so I do like Necrons too. If you didn't have those things, if you didn't have the comedy of the Nurgle demons, we wouldn't have a laugh over things like Sloppity Piper. I mean, so maybe like we're taking it a little bit too seriously.
Maybe.
But having said that, in the context of 40k, I don't think that comedy does it doesn't quite sit for me.
Well, they do have an interesting opportunity now, don't they, timings-wise?
Well,
because who else hasn't had much of an update for a while?
Who?
Who doesn't like demons?
Who doesn't like demons?
Yeah, which faction really dislikes demons?
Oh, please don't. My poor Grey Knights. No, they've given us a great new combat. They've given us this amazing value combat patrol, which currently is the only place that you can get the new Dread Knight Grandmaster, who is not new, it's just an upgrade kit.
Do you want to say
How far do you want me to go down this rabbit hole?
Just, do you want to say even more depressing about that?
Tell me.
Combat Patrol. It's still the other half from the Grey Knight versus Thousand Suns box they did in 9th edition.
Oh, wow.
The upgrades brew chucked in. It's basically the exact same half.
Yeah, I to be honest, I think
Crow and his little friends.
I really think that release by GW sucks.
Yeah, it does.
I think it sucks. I just don't. Grey Knights are my favourite faction in 40k. I just feel like it's a downer.
It is.
I'm always like the glass is half full, not half empty.
Does it?
But I didn't ask for an upgrade sprue for the Dread Knight. Why didn't you just give me the whole new Dread Knight? Like now, it makes me depressed because I think I'm stuck with that Dread Knight for another 20 years.
Listen.
Because they've done an upgrade sprue for it now. I'm going to be stuck with that baby carrier for the rest of time.
Do you know why?
And then I'll be called unfaithful, probably.
Do you know why? the reason they got that upgrade sprue is because they can't do any more new stuff. Because, again, with the Combat Patrol, you've got, what's his face in it?
Crow. My boy.
Who looks massive compared to everything else
massive.
in the Combat Patrol box. He looks really stupid,
But they've already done it now. I know, but they've already done it.
The reason why they've only done the upgrade sprue is because they are preparing to do the full range refresh. And I believe more than ever before, that the 11th edition starter box is going to be Grey Knights versus Chaos Demons. And the Demons are going to have this refresh. I'm not basing this on anything, I have no idea. But it just seems like such a coincidence that Demons haven't had a new update for ages.
Yeah.
Grey Knights need a range refresh.
They really do, yeah.
If you did that as a starter box, Grey Knights versus their arch nemesis, good versus evil, it's not Ultramarines for a change, because my God, what else can they do with Space Marines at this point? What a cool new direction for 40k.
Look, obviously, as a Grey Knight fan, I would love that, but I don't. Even if I was running GW, which thankfully for lots of you I'm not, I wouldn't have. And no, I wouldn't axe your factions. Don't worry, but I wouldn't have Grey Knights in the box set because I think I feel like they are really popular. Like they're always popular when we do them in a show here.
They have their own video.
But they're not like Space Marine, generic Space Marine, Ultramarine, Blood Angel popular, I would say. Like, is that not a bit of a risk for GW in the launch box? Because usually that's the opportunity where they put in like a couple of Space Marine characters which you could only get in that box. You know, here's the Librarian in Terminator armor, for example.
Well, think about it this way. So, a couple of things.
Yeah.
Two things to come back on. They focused on Space Marines, the Primaris range, for a good 4, 5, 6 years at this point. So they've put years into that range. They've basically redone Space Marines. They've done it.
Yeah.
It's finished.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
They're going to add a few more things in here and there.
Yeah,
they're going to update some stuff, probably bikes.
Yeah.
That's going to be the new thing.
Bikes need to be done. Yeah.
I think another box set of Space Marines doesn't make sense to me currently, based on how much has been focused on Space Marines for a while.
They haven't done the Assault Terminators yet, have they?
They haven't, but that doesn't need to be in a box necessarily. That could just be a kill team. It could be its own separate release.
That would sell.
Oh yeah, big time.
Wouldn't it?
The Grey Knights, in terms of their current range, the Grey Knights, you've got like 4 different infantry types.
Yeah.
You've then got the Nemesis Dread Knights. Yeah. And a few characters, that's it.
Yeah.
You could fit a range refresh for Grey Knights into a starter box.
You actually could, yeah.
It could fit in there.
Assuming they don't expand the army in any way, yeah.
Then for Chaos Demons, you could do Plague Bearers, Bloodletters, Demonettes, and Flamers.
Okay.
Or Pink Horrors, sorry. Plus a couple of extra bits and pieces in a starter box.
Yeah.
You could then, in their codex, say, you can use Forge Fiends, you can use Mauler Fiends, you can use Soul Grinders, you can use blah, 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 blah. And you can expand it from there.
I
love it. Obviously, I'm a Demon fan as well. I love it. I just don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know if they're going to do that.
It's a bit left field.
Look, I unfortunately, I agree, but I've had a thought.
Go on.
Because I agree. I think, unfortunately, given Space Marine 2, given Secret Level, they can't shy away from Ultramarines just being on everything all the time, everywhere.
Sure.
So whatever the launch box has to be for an edition has to have the boys in blue.
Okay.
But what we do know, at the end of an edition, sometimes they get a little bit crazy with some of the stuff they reveal.
Yes.
End of Ninth, we got Dantec, we got the Lion, we got VAAASHTORRR, we got all this stuff just was released. We got all the boarding action boxes. Remember Farsight was randomly in a boarding action box? We got Snick Rock. What if Fulgrim's back, right? And based on something we were talking about the other day with the Primarchs, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We were saying we reckon Russ probably is on the way.
Yeah.
Where has Russ been all of this time?
Fighting Chaos Demons.
In the Warp.
Oh, so now, follow him out.
Who do we know that currently has a big beef with the Space Wolves that don't particularly like them very much? The Grey Knights, right? After the whole Emperor's Gift thing, when they had a proper fight with them, it all kicked off. Yeah. They're on the Inquisition's poo-poo list, right?
Yes.
Now say, Russ comes back out of the Warp. That's not. The Inquisition don't like this. Oh, Bobby G's running terror, is he? Oh, the Lion's back. Okay, the Inquisition needs to step in here. What is happening? That's when suddenly you get these new Grey Knights released. Russ is back, but who's gonna watch the watchdog, right? It's gotta be the Grey Knights. I think we'll get an end of edition thing. Like a refresh for the stuff at the end of an edition box.
It's part of the narrative.
Like we used to with...
a narrative campaign sort of thing.
Like Stormclaw, like the VAAASHTORRR box when you got VAAASHTORRR and Azrael. You can have the same data sheets, but you do like an end of an edition box. Like the Siege on the Rock, like the Lion, like Angron and stuff, just towards the end of the edition, they're just like, bam, here's like... Imperial Agents suddenly came out of nowhere this edition. What if it's because they're building the Inquisition as more as its own thing, and at the helm of that Inquisition, it's your Grey Knights.
Okay, I've had a couple of thoughts, if I may.
Please,
First thought is that absolutely supports your theory is the fact that they just randomly removed, a third of the Slaanesh demon range with this new update, no chariots anymore. So they've removed that sort of fantasy aesthetic, haven't they? They've tried to remove the fantasy aesthetic.
Weirdly, they've put a couple of chariots back in now, but not all of them.
Oh, what?
It's what we call the Death Watch.
Weird. Really weird.
It's a classic GW move.
Yeah.
And no, here's the thing. They didn't have to do a Dread Knight upgrade sprue. They could have just done another character. No one ever asked for Grandmaster Voldus, okay? Why did you give us Grandmaster Voldus when you had Stern or Drago to do? No, just give you another random character. It's like producing the Eldari Corsairs. Here's a squad of Corsairs with no other context. Okay, I love them, by the way. Now give me the rest of the range. So, what they could have done, and they should have done, is just redid Drago. Or if they wanted something special for him, he could only come out with a brand new range refresh, then do Stern. These are the two remaining fine cast characters. But here's my horrible, dreadful fear. I've just realised. Those are the two remaining fine cast characters.
Yeah.
Well, they might not be in this Grey Knight book. And all I'll have left is a Dread Knight upgrade.
Crow was fine cast though.
Yeah, but they've redone him. That's right.
Oh God, you mean soon?
Yes, I mean soon.
No,
I mean, this Grey Knight Codex, which is coming up whenever it's going to be released, it might not have Drago.
No Drago.
Or Stern in it.
Ooh.
Which, for Grey Knight players, is huge. Is absolutely huge.
Another thing.
What?
Oh, if we're talking about things being removed.
What?
Right.
Yeah, but I'll be stuck with my Dread Knight because they've given us an upgrade.
Do you want some more bad news?
What?
Well, what got removed inexplicably from Space Wolves, which was amongst other things, but inexplicably removed from Space Wolves when their codex came out?
The flyers.
Yep. What if the Grey Knights also lose their flyers? Their flyer?
That would be an indication to me of what they're doing with flyers in general, if they do that.
So what if?
Because let's face it, they don't. I don't think GW knows
You're
what to do
running out
with
of data sheets.
Well, this is a
basically,
really
I have
interesting
no
point.
army. It's like my Drakari all over again.
Yeah.
Just giant crow on his own.
Now
Just for Tantalus?
I don't know about that because that is just a what's that thing called?
Stormraven.
Stormraven.
Classic.
Because you can
It's
get that in
the
Space Marine, so that would be double
Get it
weird
in Space
if that
Marines
was
for
gone.
now.
Yeah, but if that's gone plus the 2 fine cast characters, that's then a very, very, very small range.
What if though?
My Drago.
The thing is, what they can do is if they keep a fine cast model, for me, it generally speaks to that a redo is coming for them.
Yes.
I mean, if that Codex comes out without Drago, that's very sad. oh,
It's going to get worse. No, it's going
this
to
has
get
become a
worse.
massive tangent, by the way.
I know, I'm sorry, guys. But it's because Grey Knights and Demons and potentially going the 11th.
Two sides of the same coin.
You know what they might do?
What?
They'll drop the Dreadnoughts too.
The
They'll
venerable
drop
dreadnoughts.
the Dreadnoughts.
Oh my god. It's going to be like an A4 piece of paper. 1-page rules.
My Dreadnoughts.
Codex
My
Panther
lucky
Grey Knights.
Dreadnoughts.
Your lucky dreadnoughts.
My Forge World official Grey Knight Dreadnoughts.
Are they Forge World?
With Force Halberds.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they took those rules away, so I just use them as a venerable dreadnought. That's
Yeah.
okay. I still fight on. But when they take it out of the book completely, I'll be
Dwindling.
left there.
Dwindling they are.
Nothing but memory.
Interesting.
Well, I tell you what I would do then.
Yep.
As a no Games Workshop, I'm not going to use your Dread Knight kit as you want me to with the guy on front. I will take my Forge World Dreadnoughts. And I will convert them to be the bodies of the Dread Knights.
Nice.
Cut the face
So
off.
that they will be full knights.
Yep.
And they'll look. Yeah, that would be cool, and that would also be a really fun epic conversion to do.
Yeah.
It will be time-consuming and expensive, but totally worth it. Since I wouldn't be able to use my Dreadnoughts anymore anyway. At least then they would be used for something.
They just got to be redone.
They're not going to. They're going to be an upgrade kit.
But surely they can't just keep fobbing off the little tiny strap marines.
It will happen. And I do feel confident, again, going back to Demons, I do feel confident the Demons are going to get the same thing. I feel like they're going to separate the fantasy Demons and completely remove them from 40k and do this new range. It just makes sense. I can't see them removing Demons from 40k because they're an inherent part of the setting.
Yeah.
Chaos caused the heresy. You can't just remove demons.
Yeah.
That's just mad.
Well, they could do. I mean, they've got effectively the sort of nod to the Demonkin, haven't they? Now with the new World.
This is
the other thing that could happen. They could just stick with that, and that's how demons exist now. That would be sad.
They could do that, but then what they could do is have the VAAASHTORRR book, which is the soul. I don't know what they'll call it.
VAAASTORRR book.
VAAASHTORRR book.
VAAASTORRR Codex.
VAAASHTORRR
Servants of the Soul
book,
Forge.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Servants of the Soul.
Come on
Forge,
now.
Battle men.
And then that will be your new demons, the cyber demons. I mean, that would be a really cool direction.
cool. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's going to be people which love their demon collections. There are massive demon players out there which wouldn't want that to happen either.
Yeah.
So I mean, people would be going to have disappointment. I think.
People don't know what they want. Imagine if they redid the 4-core infantry. You've got demonettes and they've got cyber legs, so they go faster.
Yeah.
You've got plague marines like dragging like puke cannons into combat, and they've got I don't know, other techie things.
Yeah.
The Tzeentch is a weird one. I don't really know. That would be the hardest one to
Well, they
bring
can
to
have
life, I
like
think.
a burning flame.
Well, Tzeentch kind of get away with it because they've got wizard powers.
Yeah.
So they can just shoot stuff. They've always been, when you play bolt gun, Tzeentch is always the ranged enemies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they always kind of have had that. I think if you were to amalgamate demons into a cohesive force again, you'd probably be more like marks of chaos. Like if you want to be pure Nurgle's demons are in Death Guard, but maybe in the demons like servants of the Be'lakor or something. Yeah. It's like you can pick your Forge Fiends, whatever other siege engines you have, and you give them Mark of Tzeentch, it means they hit better. Or you give them Mark of Slaanesh and they're faster.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Almost whatever warp juice you're putting into them is from one of the gods.
Yeah.
Would probably be how, i.e. like, I'm thinking of Doom, your Mancubus either goes green, pink, red, or blue, depending on like what god you've gone for, is kind of maybe how they would do it. Yeah. So you can take a bit of everything and it'd just be one exciting sci-fi demon force.
Yeah.
Should be cool.
Which would be so cool. And
Very cool.
you say it's hard, isn't it? Because if you're going to do something that grandiose and new with demons, you are probably going to upset some people.
Well, yeah, you are, and you don't want to.
And you know, but if you can do something smart and still have a nod to, you can just take loads of fantasy demons. You could keep some of the stuff, but just add loads of new stuff in.
Yeah.
Can we say that all the greater demons are cool if they look exactly the same?
Yeah, I think greater demons should probably stick to looking like greater demons, I suppose.
Yeah.
Some of them can do with it. Like the Great and Clean one's brilliant. The Bloodthirster is pretty old at this point.
I don't mind him though.
He's okay.
Like-
he's fine. But yeah, I think if there's a focus on the infantry and just bring in the other elements, I think it could be a really fun, interesting new faction.
Think of the Demon Prince kit.
Yeah.
That does both.
Yeah.
But you could have
you could
have like a Bloodthirster.
Yeah.
That's on like a rock lofting its axe.
Yeah.
But in the 40k one, it has like a shoulder-mounted skull cannon or something.
Like a bionic jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a face swap and a
so
thing. So
cool,
it's suddenly
yeah.
like, oh, and maybe its wings are like made out of some energy rather than fleshy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You give it a big jump pack.
Yeah.
So it suddenly is like, same kit, do what they did with the Demon Prince. You just have these, because that's something we didn't expect them to do. That it was like, here's your Demon Prince, and it just did both.
Yeah.
We know that they have the technology.
Yeah, even if you change the weapons up, if you gave like a greater demon of Khorne like a massive chain axe, which was kind of demonic looking, like it's little things like that that could really make it work.
Goes a long way.
Yeah,
It does go a long way.
Oh, it's very exciting. I
is very
can't wait.
I mean,
for
I'm not over there doing this, but
I think they could. I think they absolutely could.
Well, I do think there's an element of like, yes, this is a bit more speculative, and we don't know that they're doing this, but I think I'm a firm believer in if your army is mainly firstborn, i.e. your Grey Knights, a redo is coming at some point.
Yeah.
Who knows when, who knows how long you'll be left in the dark for, but there is a little light at the end of the tunnel. Either that or you get axed entirely, but I don't think they'd do that, do you know what I mean?
When you open
like,
up that 11th edition box set, it's like that scene in Pulp Fiction where you open Marcellus Wallace's briefcase.
Yeah.
And that light emanating is your Grey Knight sprues.
well,
but it's just one giant character.
Not so long ago,
Glory.
they axed Deathwatch, and there was such a stink kicked up that they had to sort of give them a quick detachment.
True.
Not be out, but I mean, they have confirmed the codex is coming, so we know they're not being axed per se. But I worry. I do worry.
No, they're not getting a code. They said that like they're getting they've basically got what they have now. The thing with the Deathwatch though is that there are no kits. You've got veterans, a Watchmaster, the other guy, Artemis, and the Corvus and the Terminators. Right? That's five kits. And that's
Terminators
it.
are technically an upgrade sprue as well.
Yeah, and they're firstborn. So actually, it's 4, and then you have to like buy a load of Space Marine stuff. So I, although sad, wasn't surprised they axed them because it's so hard to make a Deathwatch army and really confusing, and it makes no sense.
Whereas Grey Knights are a cohesive army.
Grey Knights are Grey Knights. Like they have their own look and their own faction. Like you can't make Grey Knights from anything else. They're just Grey Knights. And they're popular, and it's coming, baby.
So I
It's
feel
coming.
like if that's happening,
What if they take my dreadnoughts away?
I can't
Brace
I can't give you much hope.
no, that's probably happening.
They're probably going to do that.
I think so. And Drago.
Draco.
Yeah.
And Stern.
Cast him onto the fire.
So basically, you've got a Grandmaster, a Captain, or a Grandmaster in Dreadnought.
Got Giant Crow.
Oh, don't forget.
That's it.
Grandmaster Voldust.
Got Master Milner.
Voldus
Your
would be
favourite
good.
Crow?
Well, I do like Voldus, but it's just, I don't know why GW do these random things, like give you something which no one asked for, as opposed to actually...
I enjoy that Crow is bigger than Voldus.
Yeah.
Even though Voldus is in Terminator.
Yeah.
Crow's bigger than Caldor Drago.
It is. Well,
Goodness
Drago's like this
sake.
big now. But I do think as well, if that's happening...
Come on, imagine a new Drago.
I think it's the same principle. If they're doing this weird... If anything weird happens to a faction, it really makes me think that they don't just randomly throw stuff in the bin for no reason.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Like stuff normally gets cut and it is like a wailing and gnashing of teeth, but then something cool normally happens.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
What's happened before? Ragnar came out by himself.
yeah.
Your mate came out by himself.
My mate,
Your mate, Gold Boy.
Dante.
Can never remember his name. Dante came by himself. Grey Knight Man came
Crow.
by himself. It's the same thing. Farsight came
Yep.
by himself. They'll redo the Crisis at some point.
heard it here first.
It's a little hint.
I
Here's
d-
one
yeah.
for now.
I feel like VAAASHTORRR was the omen, the arcane, if you will,
Yeah.
of now New Demons.
Yeah. It's happening, baby.
And on that demonic bombshell, I have been James Jordan, aka The Bard. I have been joined by Lawrence Baker. You're really concerned, aren't you now?
I've just sort of realised, you've witnessed me realise it, that my Grey Knights army is going to be...
You're in jeopardy.
It's going to be obliterated. It's going to be obliterated, you know, and all I'll have left to show for it is an upgrade sprue, which I can only get in a combat patrol box.
It's always darkest before the dawn, Lawrence. The dawn of the Grey Knights in the 11th edition box set.
I see no dawn, only an eclipse or hope.
It's night time.
Very night time. And the eclipse himself, Mr. Joe Pointing.
I am the moon.
I am the moon. We've been Tabletop Tactics, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.